I do want to talk about something that Keir Starmer, at the very least, is pretending to be very upset about. Maybe he's angry, maybe he isn't. And these are the comments by Jim Ratcliffe, who people may know as either the part owner of Manchester United. It's also the head of Ineos, the chemicals giant, one of the richest men in the UK. And he gave an interview to Sky News this week, and he basically said, well, the line that everyone's taken from it, he actually said some quite interesting things. But the line that everyone's taken from it is he said that the UK is being colonised by immigrants. And Mark, I think it's fair to say that he's got a bit too far there in his criticism. But the reaction has been absolutely insane. I mean, the fact that the Prime Minister is demanding or has demanded an apology, there's all kinds of investigations into Jim Ratcliffe. What have you made of this?
Well, it's been really interesting. Obviously, the Prime Minister's had an awful week and an awful month and an awful 18 months. And he, therefore, having lost McSweeney, thought he'd get back on the front foot and virtue signal on X in regard to Jim Ratcliffe. I think he saw that as an open goal, PR-wise. And I think it's backfired because if you look at the numbers on his post on X repudiating Sir Jim Ratcliffe, several million impressions, several million views, and a few thousand likes, which I understand. My 16-year-old son tells me that's death by ratio. And therefore, what the likes of Starmer and the perennial Prime Minister in waiting, Andy Burnham, have done, because he's piled in as well, is demonstrated how out of touch they are with public opinion, and seen what they thought was an open goal, but in fact reveals a lot about them. Yes, the language was clumsy, colonized. It's a very loaded word. It has echoes of Suella Braverman with the invasion. It's like, we talked about illegal immigration. They've entered the country illegally. They shouldn't be here, no problem. But invasion is a very partisan and loaded word.
Yeah.
Similarly, colonized. Couple of things to say. The progressive left have jumped on this and interpreted his remarks narrowly on purpose, because that's their agenda. And if you're smart and nuanced about it, look at what he's saying. He's saying that you've got a rapidly changing society that no one voted for. If he says colonize, it's strong. But if you go to certain parts of the country, it feels very, very poorly integrated. Does that make Tower Hamlets a colony of another part of the world? Potentially, in pure descriptive terms, not a million miles away from that, a ghettoized community. So, choose your language.
Yeah.
But we don't get distracted by clumsy language from Ratcliffe. First of all, it's an advantage that he did speak clumsily and using intemperate language, because now we're talking about it, right? So it's quite useful. And I think we need to have this conversation. And by the way, I just say praise the Lord that he's spoken out on this. And I'll tell you for why. Because rich and powerful people, if they can use their platform to speak out and to say what they think is right and what isn't right, then we should all be very grateful. We've seen it in the world of culture and entertainment from Ricky Gervais and J.K. Rowling pushing back on the madness of woke ideology. J.K. Rowling more just through her interactions on X, her no-nonsense rebuttal of gender ideology, and Gervais through humour and laughing at woke madness. And I'm so grateful that they've done that, because to a degree, Gervais has, it doesn't look like it from his bank balance, but he sort of cancelled himself by being so bold, but creating a much bigger audience in the process. So, and therefore for Ratcliffe from the world of business to speak out is good, because there's so many people in the corporate world that would agree with every word he said. The other thing that's being, amid all of the noise of it, is being ignored is the unsustainable nature of 9 million people on benefits who are of working age.
Which is also something he pointed out.
Yeah, and this is another of those, heretical things to say. It's one of those things that, it's the great unspoken dark truth, which is that we live beyond our means as a country. The cult of welfarism is economic quicksand. We're mortgaging the future of kids that haven't even been born yet. It's abhorrent. By the way, it sounds like I'm obsessed with Rishi Sunak, but I've got one more. I'm on a hat trick.
His biggest fan.
But I got one more Sunak observation, which is when he talked about national debt, he said it was unethical and immoral. And no one points that out, that borrowing on behalf of future generations. So he was right on the economy, and his overall point about a rapidly changing society that's poorly integrated, that no one voted for, is spot on. And I thank him for being so brave.
I think, Tom, it's been interesting to see, as you alluded to, Mark, both Andy Burnham and Keir Starmer jumping in. It's like the only thing that unites the knackered left nowadays is the excitement of being able to call people racist.
Absolutely.
They're really picking up with that now with Farage and Reform, aren't they? That's their entire pitch, is just to accuse them of that. That's all they've got left. And as you say, the glee that comes upon them when there's someone that they can, in their minds, legitimately throw that word at them. Meanwhile, I think everyone else is just really bored of people taking outsized offence to how someone talks about an issue rather than the issue itself. And that's been the case on immigration now for a very long time. It's also worth noting that on the kind of woke side of the immigration argument, the use and abuse of colonisation, certainly as a word, has been pretty rampant. You know, there's that poem on the Underground that many people have pointed out by a woman called Louise Bennett, I believe, which talks about colonisation in reverse. There's a sort of slogan on like Islamic sectarian Twitter that you see pop up a lot. I follow it closely, of course, which is we're not taking part, we're taking over. there is like that, which is indicative of a broader problem. Also indicative of a broader problem is places like Tower Hamlets, which is not only, you know, poorly integrated in terms of populations not mixing and so on and so forth. It's been run for many years now. People kind of forget this, by basically Bangladeshi sectarians in a Bangladeshi sectarian party whose councillors have been standing for office in Bangladesh. This is obviously not a sign of the melting pot working wonderfully for everyone. So I think going back to the issue.
You could call it cultural colonisation to a degree. And if not political and territorial.
Yeah, and it's this sort of thing where, of course, this is a question of immigration policy rather than people, showing up.
As well, doesn't mean it literally.
Right.
I
think that's the most important thing.
List, but
but it's just, I think, talk about the issue rather than the way in which people talk about it.
But the other thing that what critics of Ratcliffe have done is focused on that he's a billionaire. Well, that should be celebrated. He's a great British success story. I think he was born and grew up in the north of England,
right,
which has changed beyond all recognition. And then the other thing is that he lives in Monaco is the other criticism of him. Well, I think that makes him even more of a patriot because he doesn't actually have skin in the game. He's a rich man. He's insulated from the consequences of mass unchecked migration. And yet he still speaks out, right? He's making no money from doing this. Yeah. He's winning no plaudits. And I'm sure within the circles that he operates, he'll be the bad guy for a while. So I think it's quite remarkable that he's decided to do that. And I think it's because he's really concerned about his country and he is using his platform. Others are so cowardly and they don't speak out. They want to protect what they've got. And just briefly, he's got form on this because he's mentioned the welfare stuff, which is true. That's a ticking time bomb. Unfashionable, but the right thing to say. He's talking about integration. And the other thing is just about a year and a half ago, he spoke out on net zero.
Yeah.
And very eloquently. And he said, look, it's just really, really dishonest to say that we're cutting carbon emissions when we simply get the emissions from overseas where the energy is dirtier. So it makes no sense.
Absolutely. And he raised that in this interview as well. And to be honest, I know, the left will throw the billionaire word accusation around as if to say, what he doesn't know what he's talking about. But actually, that reflects badly on them. The fact that a billionaire who lives in Monaco is more in touch with the concerns of ordinary citizens than the Labour Party, the party of the working people, says is its own story.
And he endorsed Starmer to be Prime Minister before the election. Yeah. So he's not a sort of rabid, swivel-eyed lunatic right-winger.